Good morning. I'm Jeff Hammond, Executive Director at International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Thank you for joining us for our May Town Hall. This one is sponsored by ClimateMaster, manufacturer of water source and ground source heat pumps. We thank them for their sponsorship. So before we get started with our speaker, I'm going to go through just a few updates for IGSHPA members so you can find out the latest news. If you'd like to present at one of these town hall webinars or dig deeper webinars, just go to IGSHPA.org and you'll find a training and events calendar button on the homepage. There's an abstract form there that you can fill out. We do still have a few sessions available for 2024, so let us know if you'd like to present. We're always looking for new and exciting topics. The end of this month, we will be having the IGSHPA Research Conference. We typically have one of these about every 2 years. And in this case, it's in Montreal, Canada. We have about 50 papers. You can still register. It's not too late. There's a program guide online at IGSHPA.org if you're looking for information. It's the end of May. Excited to announce that we are well underway with our next annual conference. We moved it back just a few months from December to March, so that it's a spring conference this time. And we're working with the Geothermal Alliance of Illinois on this conference in Champaign, Illinois. It's March 11th through the 13th, 2025. You can register now for this conference. You can also make your hotel reservations. You can see here we already have 40% of this block full. So if you want to stay at the conference hotel, I would recommend booking relatively soon. We also are accepting abstracts for workshop speakers, and we are accepting sponsors for the conference. You'll see an email and posting on the website for exhibitor spaces here shortly. We should have that by mid to late May. There's even an outside exhibit area for larger equipment this time, so we're excited about the conference. This is the brochure you'll find online for sponsorship levels. We already have a number of sponsors, which I wasn't sure if we would it would be this fall, but people are anxious to sponsor already. So you can see here we have our 2 platinum sponsorships filled, Climate Control Group and Intertech. We already have a gold sponsor with Centennial, silver with Carbon Solutions Group, and 1 bronze sponsor already with GeoHydro Supply. So thanks so much, sponsors. We certainly couldn't do it without you. GeoOutlook magazine, there is a June 1st deadline, so you have a few more weeks if you'd like to advertise in the magazine. Right now it's published in July and January. We will attempt to go to a quarterly magazine once we get to a point where we're able to fill up each of those editions with advertising and articles. At this point, we're still twice per year, and so you do have through June 1st. We are partnering with BNP Media. If you read Engineered Systems or the ACHR News, you'll be familiar with BNP Media. They have an audience with these 2 magazines of over 50,000 when you include the IGSHPA mailing list. So it's a good opportunity if you'd like to write an article or advertise to get the word out about your services and products. If you haven't been receiving GeoOutlook, please contact us at info@IGSHPA.org. We have had some issues where some companies are automatically unsubscribing for our emails. And if you do that, you won't be notified, which is kind of a shame because you won't get this news, but also if you have a membership or certification, you won't be notified. So check to see that you're getting emails from IGSHPA. If not, contact us, please. We do have a new membership program that rolled out at the beginning of the year. Lots of new levels from directory only listings all the way up through benefactor members and new rates for retired and students even. If you haven't logged on to the member portal lately, there's a lot more on the member portal. When you go to members, you'll find welcome to the new member portal login, and you will have to change your password the first time you log in. So it'll look like this once you're officially logged in, and there's a whole lot more resources now. It looks very similar, but it does have a bunch of new information here. You can see you can even print your certification card. One of my favorites is you can set it for auto renewal, so you don't have to remember, you don't have to look for emails. So that's on the new member portal. And here's your certification information. If you would like CEUs for this town hall or Dig Deeper webinars, if you would, please send a message in the chat or Q&A with your name and email address, and we'll record that for you. You also have the opportunity to get CEUs for a recorded version of this webinar. If you want to watch it later on, just key in this code when you notify us that you've watched it, and we'll credit you for watching the recorded session. Each of these sessions are recorded. They're usually online within the next day or so you can find that. You don't need this code if you're watching it live, but if it's recorded, you'll need that code. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you would, please mute your microphone if you're not speaking. That way we don't have distractions for the presenter or for the attendees. And you can ask your question in either chat or Q&A. We have had some challenges with that. So if for some reason you can't use chat or Q&A, raise your hand and we will recognize you, and you can ask the question verbally. Sometimes you'll find a little notice like this that will ask you to accept the policy from another organization. So then that should let you chat. But again, if you can't chat, use Q&A. And if all else fails, just raise your hand. All right. If we could please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, so we don't distract the others who are attending. Let me read this quick disclaimer and potential conflict of interest, and then I will turn it over to Mike Kapps and read his bio. The upcoming presentation represents the opinion of the presenter and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSHPA or its members. IGSHPA town halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry and are not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It is the presenter's responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of this webinar. Again, thanks to ClimateMaster for sponsoring this. Mike, feel free to share your screen at any time while I'm reading your bio. It's a pleasure to introduce Mike Kapps, who began his career in the industry in 1983. So he's had just a little bit of experience. He joined TerraSun Distributing in Indianapolis, Indiana, who was a distributor of HVAC equipment, and he was responsible for sales and technical support. In 1984, Mike and his partner started LoopMaster International, a residential and commercial geothermal design and installation company to serve the growing demand for geothermal ground loop installations. TerraSun and LoopMaster were purchased by a water source heat pump manufacturer in 1991, and Mike kept his role as general manager of the company. Mike left in 1997 to pursue some other endeavors that included work with a commercial HVAC representative in Las Vegas, Nevada. He worked for Trane in the federal sector geothermal specific ESPC contracting in the United States government owned facilities, and he also was director of international sales at ClimateMaster. Mike returned to his Indiana roots in 2005 as manager of business development for another manufacturer and assumed the role as vice president of LoopMaster International, the geothermal loop services business, until he started in '84. In 2010, Mike added international and commercial sales for the Northeast USA to his responsibilities with that same manufacturer. Then just this past June 2023, Mike accepted his current position as regional sales engineer at ClimateMaster and ClimateCool, bringing with him over 40 years of commercial and geothermal HVAC experience. So I turn it over to Mike, and we rely on his experience for this presentation this morning. Feel free, Mike, to move ahead. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for taking your valuable time today to share the excitement we all have in this industry. As Jeff mentioned, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in the ground source heat pump business in the U.S. and around the world, and I feel it's very fun to share my knowledge and my experience with you. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about the excitement, some good things about ground source and / water source heat pumps, and some opportunities available and the current opportunities and market that we have. Oh, sorry, I have voice technical difficulties. So I think by most of you being on here, you're going to have some interest, or at least some, it's minimal to a lot of knowledge about water source and heat pump systems, geothermal. They're called water source, water loop piping, It's just a very beneficial, very applicable type of a heating and cooling system, taking advantage of the earth that we all live on and the sun that we all get to see most days, depending on where you're at. Where I'm at today in Montreal, it's quite rainy, so not a lot of solar gain for today. But the benefits of these systems are that they're huge. That's why I've done this for 40 years now. And I hope to share that experience with the IGSHPA members. What is a ground source heat pump? It's a closed loop heat exchanger coupled with ground source heat pumps in both residential and commercial applications. It can be used globally. There are areas of the world where it's a little more of a challenge than others, but here in the US, we've had a lot of success with the various manufacturers and the great loop contractors and IGSHPA members that we have out there. It utilizes the same type of natural gas pipe used, HDPE, a lot of technology and a lot of good vendors available for that now as well. Commercially, it's very common to do vertical bores. Residentially, it tends to be vertical and horizontal, depending on the climate, depending on, in my opinion, your heating or cooling loads, which is ever more dominant. And of course, your ground and your geological conditions are always going to dictate a lot of how that works. Benefits. I'm not gonna read everything, but there are a lot here, obviously. So heat pumps, obviously they work in a lot of great areas. Being closed loop geothermal, you're not really affected by the outdoor ambient temperatures as much as an air source heat pump or other conventional technologies. Lots of different ways to apply them. You know, they can be used in single systems, zone applied systems, heat recovery, very flexible, redundancy. And again, the great manufacturers we have here in North America, we have great products for residences, commercial buildings, and everything else. So talk to your manufacturer's representative and find out how they can help you grow your business if you're not already in it or you're learning. We're all out there to help you. All ships rise with the tide, as we like to say. The advantages of these systems, there's many. That's why I've been able to share this knowledge and bring a lot of people into this business here in the US and around the world. Independent zone control. I mean, you have packaged pieces of equipment in the space, so you're less vulnerable to outside elements. They're easier to service, longer lifespan because of all that as well. Somebody needs to mute. Unaffected by the outdoor weather conditions. Again, as I mentioned earlier, heat recovery options in commercial buildings as well. When your envelope, it's cold outside, your exterior systems will be running in heating, where your interior might be running in cooling. It's a great way to just move the heat energy of these systems around the building very efficiently using much less electricity, which in the decarbonization world we're all now in, this is very beneficial. We eliminate in a geothermal system, it can eliminate the cooling towers, which is great. They're great systems, water source heat pumps and a cooling tower application, but many of those do require much more maintenance than a closed loop geothermal system. It can be fossil fuel free heating, ultra efficient cooling, reduces strain in the electrical grid as well, which we're all experiencing and watching in various parts of the country. And this IRA federal tax credit applicable, which I'll talk more about at the end of the session here. Again, when I talk about the idea that part of your building can be heating, part of it can be cooling, this is a wonderful thing. I mean, this along with your building load profile can optimize your ground loop sizing, optimize the building operation as well. And it's applicable in no matter what market it's in, whether it's a cooling or a heating dominant market as well. The biggest benefit of having those. Air source heat pumps, while good technology, it has its challenges in some markets. And that can be a big one with, the coldest temperatures that they have in the extremes. A geothermal or a water source heat pump system doesn't really face those same challenges because we're not dependent on the large fluctuations of the air outside. And it's year-round comfort. The same energy that you draw out of the ground in the wintertime, you're rejecting back down into the ground in the summertime. Thus, It's just a big battery, as we like to say. And again, these are the words and the applications and opportunities I've seen. It's just been very beneficial to all various kinds of buildings that we see, both residential and commercially around the country and the world. So why a ground heat pump? Everybody everybody can say geothermal heat pumps can be good, but there's a lot of costs to these geothermal heat pumps. That is true. A geothermal system has the geothermal loop, be it horizontal or vertical or pond or whatever the application might be. That's an additional capital expense above traditional DX type cooling or heating systems or fossil fuel systems. There's some opportunities and ways in the design. And I know there's probably many good IGSHPA members and design specifying engineers that understand these hybrid applications. This is very beneficial, especially now with the IRA tax credit. Hybrid systems are enabled to reduce the ground loop sizing without reducing your efficiency of the ground loop system itself. It's able to use that for cooling dominant buildings. You might involve fluid coolers or cooling towers. The ground source can be designed to meet the smaller load. It reduces that first capital expense instead of a large geothermal loop to be installed to cover the entire building at peak load. In the early days of LoopMaster, the software and some of the experience wasn't there. We had to design these ground loop systems with our engineering partners to handle the worst peak cooling that there was. While that's possible, it also had a tremendous amount of costs. The technology, the software that's out there now, the hybrid systems make these more cost effective and as well playing easier into the IRA federal tax credit. The ground source hybrid system, obviously, in the wintertime, we're rejecting it to the loop and then the cooling tower as needed. That same cooling tower or fluid cooler, both phrases that I use, you can use that fluid cooler in a optimizing situation where the ambient air might be cooler than the entering fluid. Energize your fans to basically pre-cool your loop coming into the summertime to keep your cooling EER efficiencies higher. And this basically reverse for that in the wintertime as well. And dry coolers are commonly used. Many people probably involved in the early days of geothermal. There were some installations that the software, the installation, maybe the building load changed after the system was installed, and the geothermal loops can sometimes get warmer. There are ways to help recover those and make them optimal again, either with dry fluid coolers, cooling towers again. If that's something you've experienced, get with someone at IGSHPA or your design engineer and look for the options that are available because they can still be very good systems. Real world examples of how does this hybrid thing really benefit that? Well, this project in Tulsa, a couple 100,000 square foot building, 750 tons, full system geothermal, 500 boreholes, well field cost of 1.2 million. That's a big number for people to spend. How is it done? What could be done to reduce that? Doing it by hybrid and add the cooling tower significantly reduced the cost of the system from 1.2 million to 510,000. Savings in there of what, 690 some $1,000. These are real world examples. This is really what the software tools and the design engineers in this business can share with your customers now. These make them optimal opportunities now. Don't be scared. Many times in this, people want to do geothermal, but they do a 10-second ROI and go, oh, geothermal's too expensive. That's not really right anymore. The tools, the IRA, some local incentives, along with the industry, such as IGSHPA support, there's still great reasons to do geothermal. Some other unique things that can be done within the system for cost savings as well as like a single pipe application. Some people do this, some people don't fully understand it, but it can be an optimal way and properly designed zone sizing within the building to save pipe and costs, labor costs, pipe costs as well. It just utilizes a single pipe zoning systems to reduce it without reducing the performance of the equipment. We don't put 100 units on a system on one pipe and think where it starts at one temperature and it's 40 degrees higher at the other end. That's really not how single pipe works. Just understand it. It is an opportunity to be done. It can save significant amount of piping within the building because we all know labor and materials are a significant part of these systems outside the equipment and the geothermal loop. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but if you're interested in that, talk to your representative, your manufacturer, your commercial or residential, commercial representative about these options as well. The advantage of single pipe, as I mentioned, it can reduce cost, installation, smaller building loop horsepower because the piping in the units with the total flow required are less than the entire building in a reverse return. Just some nice little graphics of how that might look as well. Can even be done down to where the geothermal loop comes into the building. It's simpler, everything is. Beauty of IGSHPA and the contractors and the loop contractors out there. There's so many good systems out there now, so much good experience. That's the nice part about this 40 plus years in. I've watched the knowledge level of the people involved in this industry really grow. A lot of questions have been answered. The mistakes were made early on. Those aren't happening anymore. There's so much good technology and abilities out there. I won't spend tons of time on that. As I mentioned earlier, and what is very beneficial to the entire U.S. market right now is the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. These are our tax dollars in the U.S. Geothermal is now considered a renewable like solar was. Thank you to all the people that were involved with IGSHPA, GeoExchange, all the manufacturers to get this done. This is a significant improvement to the opportunities that we have within this business now. Obviously, rising energy costs, what we're seeing happening, the move for decarbonization that I've witnessed both in the Northeast and out West. We're watching that migrate into the center part of the U.S. now as well. The IRA basically is now providing a 30% federal tax credit on geothermal systems qualifying, an additional 10% for domestically manufactured, plus some additional opportunities should it be in a economic hardship area, a former coal mining area. I won't explain all of this or go through all of it, but the manufacturers such as ClimateMaster have this information on their site. Feel free to go out and investigate it if you're not up to all the newest technology. The industry is providing new information, I think, monthly from IRS and Treasury on the final details of everything, but it's a fantastic program. It applies for profit and nonprofit as well. So this is a game changer we all need to take advantage of. As I mentioned, 30% GHP system cost. It's not like you can put one geothermal well in and try to get a 30% federal tax credit. It does have some parameters for which must be met. That is all detailed out in the brochures that ClimateMaster and the others might have on their website as well. Again, it's great. It took geothermal, made it a renewable. So I don't know how many people might have known it previously, but there was a 10% federal tax credit for commercial, but maybe people didn't see that as a big opportunity because it was only 10%. Well, now it's 30 and really 40 because of its domestically manufactured geothermal heat pump, along with some other potential ones, is huge. I think there'll be eventual financing available for the bridge part of that. I think those people are out there watching this and waiting. Again, great information available from the manufacturers out there. There are tax professionals out there to help your chief financial officer or the financial person making the decision that the customer you're working with, they're out there as well. So reach out to your manufacturing partner and find out what resources are available should you be interested in pursuing a project further. Again, when I talked about the domestic content bonus, additional accelerated depreciation, beyond the 30% tax credit plus 10% domestic manufacturing, you have the energy community opportunity values there. Again, these things can all add up in certain parts of the country as well. And I think that's what our tax program should be. They should benefit the people and the customers that will see it the most in the energy savings and need those energy savings. As I talked the accelerated depreciation and all, there are some tax saving calculators online available as well. If you want to play around with that, you can download those from our website as well. Other additional incentives, I know in the New York area, there's some great state tax incentives. I believe it is from NYSERDA. Check with your local utilities, your local states, what other kind of incentives might be available. This is a business opportunity for anybody in this HVAC business. This 2024 is an election year and a tougher, challenging year because of interest rate increases, but there's still tremendous business out there. This tax incentive out there for commercial. There's another one as well for residential. This is prime business opportunity to grow your business in the ground source heat pump geothermal business. Again, as I mentioned, there's a nice brochure on our website out there. Should you want to go there and look at it, it's free to look at. Other manufacturers have them out there as well. Please feel free to gather the most information you can. Introduce your customers to it. Latest updated tax incentive documents are there. There's plenty of good information out there. Something additionally changing at the end of this year is the GWP change, or the ozone depletion. So the GWP, if you don't all know already, is 410A refrigerant will not be allowed to be shipped and manufactured geothermal heat pumps after the end of this year. That's a pretty big impact to this business. We've been working very hard on this. We are prepared for it. The new refrigerant many of us are using is R454B. It has a GWP of 466 versus R410A of 2088. The beauty of the geothermal heat pumps is you're future-proofing your building with water versus a lot more refrigerant being in the systems like that. As these things, and these are 20 plus year life systems, you can shut a couple valves off, disconnect it in 20 plus years, add another heat pump, change it out. If you need to reconfigure your commercial space, it's a lot easier to disconnect a couple valves, move a heat pump, reconnect it back up. That's the beauty of future-proofing your building with water. What are these changes? Again, this has been happening for a while. Many of you might be aware, even back R22 to R410A. This is part of it. Will there be another one in the future? More than likely. This is an opportunity to take use of this new technology, the new refrigerants. It's out there. This is all part of the timeline for which it was done. Again, 454B is what ClimateMaster has chosen to use with their products going forward. It's not a drop-in refrigerant. Talk to your commercial representative, your residential representative about the changes that's involved. It is a different kind of refrigerant, but your manufacturer will be able to educate you on that as well. Why was it changed? It's all part of the AIM Act. Again, as I mentioned, it must be below 700 here in the US. Up in Canada, it's 750, I understand. Long-term viability regulations. 466 will probably help us all because the next refrigerant change might be 500 or lower. This will give us the opportunity to use all the time and effort and dollars spent for these changes currently to 454B to be used for that and save us all time and money in the future. Let's see on there. So our original timeline, as I mentioned, the end of this year to be able to ship any 410A products, other conventional products as well. Ground source heat pumps have till 2028 to be able to sell the products that they might have in stock. This is my little plug that I always put in there as a sales guy, which when I started back in the 80s, I didn't think I'd be a sales guy, but everybody's a salesperson. And as I say, the sales department and the whole company, but the whole company better be the sales department because that's how we all live and die, is by what we produce, the relationships, and the business we generate every day. So with that, I want to thank you all very much. Again, it's a pleasure to have known Jeff and all the people in this industry, for which I've met many of you around the US and the world, and we're here as a resource for you should you need anything.
Thank you, Mike. Great presentation. It's always good to remind people of all the opportunities that we have. While we're waiting on some questions, I'm monitoring the chat and the Q&A. Maybe you could give us just a little bit of a future, maybe a crystal ball here with your 40 years of experience in the industry. And people saying the stars are aligning. What are you expecting in this industry based upon your experience?
I ask every customer that I have in the last few years. It's one of the first things I ask is, how is your market? Where do you feel it's going? How do you feel about your business? Geothermal and water source heat pumps are playing a significant role in this. Electricity cost savings, incentives, some of the other technologies out there are going to have more of a challenge with this refrigerant change. Um, this is an opportunity. You're bringing something to a customer that's not just conventional. It's not new. This is proven technology with the network of professionals, the training that IGSHPA is providing to everyone. Um, this is a great business opportunity. I see it as a very bright future. I, you know, back in what was it, 2017, when the geothermal water source business kind of went down, even earlier at 2009. It is recovering. The opportunities are there. Electricity is not getting any cheaper. The decarbonization movement is real. That's the biggest thing. Geothermal heat pumps are a big part of how you can you can make that a great business opportunity.
Okay. Great, Mike. I don't see any questions in the chat just yet. Do you have any recommendations for contractors who may not be doing geothermal just yet? There are a lot of challenges finding subcontractors, things like that. What's your advice to someone who might be
That is
new?
a challenge out there. I mean, labor and getting people into this HVAC business is a challenge, like all trades: plumbing, electrical, refrigeration. Do your research. IGSHPA is a great resource to go out and find training that's available. Um, as we go into this, you have to. We're all trying to find the edge to be able to compete, differentiate yourself, be a geothermal, make yourself a geothermal expert. The opportunities are there. The training is out there with IGSHPA and the manufacturers as well. This is, as I've told people, and I tell when I do lunch and learns with engineers, they're selling like I'm selling. Differentiate yourself, be a geothermal expert. It gives you an edge over some of your competition out there versus conventional technology.
Okay, great. You had a slide, Mike, that showed a VRF installation next to a water source installation.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on long-term retrofit maintenance, things like that, based upon your experience between those two technologies?
Well, as I mentioned on that slide or during my presentation, to replace a water source heat pump is pretty easy. Shut a couple valves off, take an old unit out, put a new one in. The only some of the challenge you might have there is physical size, but the units are small now. They're made for those retrofits. Being in it this as long as I have, for some projects that I did that were in Australia, that they changed the equipment from R22 to 410 just for that reason. They changed 200 units out of a building, put 200 new units right back in. It's much simpler. It's package heat pumps. The other technologies such as VRF, it's got a little more challenges. There's a lot more refrigerant. It's great technology, but it's got more refrigerant. Going forward, they get an additional year for their refrigerant change. That could pose some additional challenges that the geothermal business does not have. That's why we call it future proofing your building, because none of us can see real clear in a crystal ball. But going forward, the manufacturers for the geothermal heat pumps, this is proven technology, great technology. In 20 years, it'll be even better technology. So to replace a heat pump you've installed this year in 20 years for when newer stuff's out, it's going to be much easier than a bunch of refrigerant. How do you recover it? What are the rules and laws going to be then? It's an opportunity.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. We do have
Sure.
some questions coming in now. Our first question is from Donna. She asks, how can contractors lean on distributors to help with training and marketing? Is there help out there?
There is. The distributor should lean on their manufacturer of choice that they're selling. That's it. Climate Master has CCG University. That is something that we've spent a lot of time and effort on. We have a training manager now. So if your distributor is lacking the resources or the ability to offer that, they need to lean on their manufacturer of choice to get that training brought to them. It's there, or again, IGSHPA has very good training, and I understand, Jeff, that you guys are bringing even more of that out on the commercial side.
Indeed. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Mike asked the question, so the heat exchange loops are the big cost with systems. What do you see as far as the future for this area? I think he's talking about availability and pricing on the ground heat exchanger.
I know that IGSHPA is working very hard to find more, quote, geothermal loop contractors. That's been a challenge in the business. It is an opportunity, but there's a lack of people that have the experience to be able to move around both residentially and commercially. The training is there. You know, the National Groundwater and IGSHPA are doing a wonderful job of recruiting these businesses to come in to provide geothermal loop quotes to customers. Cost wise, the cost is expensive. Materials have gone up, fuel has gone up, labor has gone up. That adds challenges to it. Talk to your local utility, talk to your local representative, your distributor about who is offering the geothermal loops in your area, and try to work with them on it. I mean, that'll be a forever challenge, just like trying to find good contractors to quote the systems as well. It's a challenge with our current labor market.
Good to know. Dan has a question. When customers ask how long do the loops last, and he's talking about a vertical ground loop in this case, what's the best way to explain the longevity?
Well, the pipe for which you're joining, it's thermally fused. It's made to be in that ground. It's high density polyethylene pipe is, I used to tell people and still do, it's 100+ years. Nobody I've worked with has been around 100 years, but the technology of that material is made to last a long time. It's got great integrity in it. Properly designed, properly fused, pressure tested and installed. I don't see a lifespan beyond infinity for that at this point. I've not seen it.
It's a problem in landfills, that high density polyethylene. So it's good news for us, bad news for landfills. So
correct. It does last forever.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions. Oops, it looks like we just had one pop in.
There you go.
This is from Bob. Proposed IRS regulations would deny tax credits to geothermal heat pump systems if ground loops are third-party owned. What do you expect this impact will have on the industry?
I've been heard there are some third-party ownership opportunities there that would bring maybe that bridge financing. I don't know all those. I know that the people working with GeoExchange and the IRS are working on that. If indeed that is a fact, that'll make third-party ownership difficult. I don't know enough about that, but that would be hard. But I feel we need some kind of potential third-party ownership that would be able to, quote, sell the paper of the cost of these, the additional financing of these. That's going to grow our business. I hope something can be managed and worked out with that, where it wouldn't be disallowed in the IRA or the tax credits. Good information. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Mike. I do know that GeoExchange is working hard on figuring that out with IRS and Treasury.
Right.
So
correct.
So, we want to continue to support GeoExchange and IGSHPA. You may see on the IGSHPA website a Venn diagram. It kind of explains how IGSHPA and GeoExchange work together. We work together on a daily basis, but GeoExchange is really more on the policy advocacy side, and IGSHPA is more on the standards and training side. So
correct.
we lean on each other for those that support for sure.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, I don't have any other questions showing up. Mike, do you want to give us some last minute thoughts here, and then we can thank everyone for their participation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. I mean, the interest there, having been involved with IGSHPA since I think I went to early IGSHPA training in 1984. I remember driving from Indiana out to Oklahoma for that. I still very vividly remember even the people that I was with and my colleagues in this industry. I think it's interesting. I thought, at points over 40 years, you think, okay, this is the plateau. This is not the plateau. I still see a bright future in this. That's why I'm still involved in it actively. and recruiting people to be involved in that. I'm still excited about doing this business every day. There's new opportunities. I get to meet great contractors and engineers around the country. So we're a resource for you. IGSHPA is a resource for you. View it as an opportunity for your business. It really is. I thank you all very much for your time. Thank you, Jeff, and then Lisa at IGSHPA for putting all this together for us. It's great.
Absolutely. And this will be recorded, so you'll see it in the next couple of days on the IGSHPA website. Thanks again, Mike, and thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks for ClimateMaster for sponsoring it, and go to IGSHPA.org for the next town hall and dig deeper announcement. Everyone have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.